Alrighty. Welcome back to the podcast, back to Tomboy Official. We're on day 6, first day of spring, March 20th, 2023. We're starting this chapter called It Is Deeper Than You in Aina Key's book, Aina's Keys to Personal Freedom by Aina Brion. So I'm kind of glad that I'm reading this in like small sections. I think I mentioned before about 2 1/3 pages per day. And you know, it's kind of interesting that it wasn't really written that way. The book itself has like I just passed the page. It has 10 chapters. I think this is chapter 3-ish. Let's see. Well, technically, I guess it's chapter 4 because of the intro chapter. So yeah, diving into it, it's pretty powerful stuff. It talks about basically this idea of you know, settling into a different frequency from what other people's kind of negative reactions kind of how they impact you, such as how they take up space in your memory and all those kinds of things. And she's pretty careful to note, you know, not going out of your way to, you know, make people not going out of your way to you know, like maybe bring people back into your life that have made you suffer from the past or anything like that. And mostly the focus on, you know, this idea that like hurt people hurt. And a lot of times when people feel like or have experienced that someone's done something wrong against them, usually that other party that's doing the wrong is coming from a place of pain, and they're putting that pain on another person or a group of other people. And you know, it's not to say, hey, just let them walk back in the door, allow them in your life, have dinner and meals with them, and you know, be all involved again. You know, it's fine to set boundaries and do what you need for yourself, but just not holding on to it in a way that kind of becomes a burden in your own life, and carrying that around with you, and kind of, you know, making the choice to release yourself from it. I mean, it's not gonna mean that you won't have thoughts about them or memories about them or you know, negative, you know, dreams or any kind of other, you know, situations where you're just like, you know, even if it happened in the near or far away past, um, you know, our ego, our mind protects us. You know, we have a memory that teaches you, you know, don't touch the hot stove too many times, you know, or else, you know, you're not gonna make it. You know, um, you know, we have these instincts, and our mind kind of naturally um, has a way of trying to protect us. And in some ways, you know, it's like, okay, you're kind of working overtime here, buddy. Like, calm it down. And it might not be too helpful, but a lot of times it's helpful. A lot of times it's a very impactful way to try to spend, um, energy to just kind of, not take advantage of people, but do what you need for yourself. Definitely care for yourself. And, it can go the other way too. Like maybe somebody's not completely like bashing you verbally, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they're like always trying to look on the bright side, and it's kind of like this like positivity that's like invalidating sometimes, where it's like, sometimes people just don't understand what you're dealing with, and they're just like trying to cheer you up maybe, but they don't really hold space for you to actually like feel how you're feeling, or allow you to do that, and they kind of make you feel like you shouldn't feel anything negative. Um, but there is a line between, basking in it and, sitting in it and just like brooding versus, and that might be part of a process too, but versus, just kind of like sometimes we do have to kind of go through the motions just to get things back in order. It's like you hear me a lot, just kind of like, oh right, like get up, go to the gym, go do this, go do that, and it's like, yeah, I might not feel like it, but you know, I remember Lincoln from Channel High Yourself was saying, focusing on your heart, focusing on what your heart tells you that you actually need for yourself versus what your mind tells you, that, oh, I'm too exhausted, oh, I'm too tired, like I just need to sleep in and be in my head and not be around people. And maybe that's true, but knowing when it's like, a product of, depression or anxiety or just poor sleep or just some other situation versus it's actually really, um, like genuinely like like needing to go through that. Um, and it's kind of, these few pages are really kind of an interesting outlook. Um, a lot of times we don't maybe get this kind of outlook too much. Um, and, the few pages beforehand weren't really a lot about this at all either. So it's kind of like, it's interesting even breaking down this book in like little pieces that it does kind of go that way. Um, but yeah, as for that segment, I think a lot of people probably find that kind of thing helpful, a helpful way of thinking, and it's a lot to reflect on, a lot to think on. I really would, encourage people to go through some of Aina Brion's YouTube channel videos. Like, they're very interesting, insightful. Um, I'm just chilling over here in the mountains. Got to take some nice photos, video footage of some nature. I don't know, man. Like, the snow is weird. I was kind of worried about getting stuck up on the hill, honestly. And I also, I didn't sleep good. I explained it all, like how I didn't really sleep too good, um, Saturday night going into Sunday morning, and then how, like last night, I stayed up till about 11, Sunday night. I left the house late to come up near the mountains to the hotel, and got to the hotel. Like, I was driving while I was recording last time, so if you listen to the previous episode, it explains kind of like, what my plans were, depending on the weather, and things like that. But sometimes I'm just like, this is just a little retreat for me. Get out of town, have a little space, like, I don't mind going and doing stuff by myself, honestly. Like, sometimes I'm like, I'd rather do it with people. But then it's like, I can really just work on my own kind of things too when I'm like out of the house and it's just a new scenery but familiar. It's not like it's so new that I have to like think so hard about like, okay, where am I gonna eat and where am I gonna go? Like I know kind of the area, but it's also new enough that like if I want to go explore some trails or something, there's plenty around, and then snowboarding and all that. Like it's not that predictable, and so yeah, I was getting pretty um, excited about going up to the mountains. Dude, last night was weird. Like I went to sleep, I think fine. I was thinking like I don't really know what today is gonna bring for Monday. There was already talk of like snow and rain and all this kind of nonsense and high winds. And so, I mean, the fog in the area where I'm at is so intense. Not right now, but it was pretty much all day, even past noon. And it was supposed to rain over here. It was supposed to snow about 20 or so minutes away. And so I went to sleep at 11 p.m. just like, let's see what the weather says. If it says everything's clear, I'll go up, possibly. And then, you know, it's like 2 a.m. and I hear this knocking. Like, I was asleep, so it woke me up. Like, it's like 2 a.m. and I kind of wake up and I'm like, what's going on, you know? Um, and so I'm at a hotel, and, you know, it's not a full hotel, like, it's fairly empty. I like to come closer to weekdays. I think I mentioned originally I was going to go Thursday to Saturday and ended up doing Sunday to Tuesday instead because I couldn't find a rental car the other day. And I don't really drive my 20 and a half year old car to the mountains anymore. One of the last times I drove it to San Diego was like right before New Year's Eve when I was ending my job the end of December, and then New Year's Day before New Year's Day the car was smoking, and then New Year's Eve I was like, well, I'm just gonna have to tow. I AAA towed all the way from San Diego back to LA. Thank God for AAA. They were I was gonna try to go like off AAA because it was taking too long, and they wanted me to wait till like 4 or something, and or like 5. You know how AAA gets, like they kind of like take forever. And sometimes they're good, but usually they give you like a quick ETA, and if you miss that call, or they just decide that they're gonna do something different, you have to kind of be a little assertive about it and call them and get on the phone, and they don't answer, and you got to just get somebody on the phone and just be like, look, you got to explain your situation, because it's like a once in a while thing. I mean, I've been told a lot, but it's because I'm driving like a 20-year-old car. But I mean that's why I have AAA, is specifically because I can't afford to be getting my car towed all over the place like that. Like at least it's already prepaid. I did have to come a little bit out of pocket, but it wasn't. It would have been over $1,000. They said, because I was gonna not use AAA, and I was like, I could spend the money, but that's a lot. At that point, I'd rather just leave the freaking car, someplace, and get out of town for a week and then come back, like get like a mechanic to fix it, take the train back, and then come back and get it. I was considering that, but of course it's like New Year's Day. There's not really a lot of options and mechanics you can call. I could have stayed another day, but I was like, dude, like I was planning on leaving. So after that, I was like, let me just stop driving my car 100-mile distances. I'll drive it between LA and Orange County. I'll drive it like 10 to 20 miles maybe, but I'm not really going to drive it that much more because I want to save it until, my job works out. My new job works out to a point where I can like afford a car. Like I'm very particular about how I spend my money. I'm so like once I get something in my head, I don't want to like budge from it, and unless it's like a necessity. But I really don't want to get car payments. I could get a car now, but I'm like, I don't want to make payments on a car that I don't want, or make car payments on a car that I do want. I'd rather just have all the money and, just buy it outright. So I'm waiting till I get a job so I can replenish some of my spending that I've done over the past few months, and then get a car. Um, but if this one completely conks out on me or something, and it's not like I have to go to work every day, like, and I have another spare car that I can kind of drive locally, and there's Uber and stuff, and I'm gonna start leaving the house a lot more. Um, Other than the gym, I'm gonna be getting on my way back to LA. I'm actually gonna get my library card renewed. It expired in 2010, so that just shows how much I go to that local library. I don't even know where I put my San Diego uh, library card, but this is the one I have in LA. The expiration sticker is 2010. Um, but I want to use it so I can study at the library, as well as coffee shops. But sometimes coffee shops, it's like I do buy something when I go, um, just because I feel like that's the right thing to do. Um, Especially because I go to the small local ones. I don't really do the Starbucks and stuff. Starbucks is cold, it's loud, it's not comfortable. They got like wooden chairs and stuff most of the time. Like, I like couches and just like chill, like beach vibes, just walk over to the ocean or whatever. Um, and so that's kind of what I prefer. And in the meantime, um, in the meantime, I'm gonna, like in the meantime, that was kind of my plan with the car situation. Uh, and, like, so I've been enjoying myself, but like I mentioned, this weekend it kind of hit me that I was like, all right, I'm ready to move on from this phase. Like, it kind of served a purpose. It's still like transitional, but I'm not fully living to my potential in this state of leisure. um, I feel like there's some benefit to it. I kind of in a way, I got my sleep back together a little bit, but I don't think I explained. I don't think I went off on a tangent. Sorry. So basically, last night I was sleeping. Right, slept at 11. 2 a.m. comes around, and like I find myself waking up, and I'm like, that's weird. Like, I'm still like really tired. And like I mentioned yesterday, I had a really bad headache most of the day from like 5 a.m. on until I got to this area, probably a little near when I posted yesterday's episode. I think I forgot to post it right when I checked in. So let's say like 5 p.m. or so, I had some Alka-Seltzer that had some aspirin in it, and I was like, let me just have that. And it worked. It helped almost within 30 minutes. I don't know what the heck was wrong with me yesterday, but, that helped. So I was like, that was other than the rain, and I don't like snowboarding in the rain. Other than the rain, that was most of the reason why I didn't go up to the mountains. I just wasn't feeling it. My head wasn't feeling good, like physically, and I hardly slept. And I was just like, let me not push too hard. So I decided I'm not gonna push too hard, and I just didn't. So I'm like, I started feeling better. Started working on some websites yesterday evening. Posted the podcast. Got some really cool ideas. Um, and just kind of was like, let me relax, see what tomorrow brings. And 11, I'm like, okay, I'm actually feeling tired, let me go to bed. And I dozed off nicely, went to sleep. It was pretty easy to fall asleep, relatively speaking. And I wake up like 2 a.m. ish, a couple minutes after 2, and I knew it was way too early. And I look at my clock on my phone, and I'm like, it's like 2:05, 2:04 a.m. or something. And I heard something that sounded like knocking. Now, I don't think I explained when I checked into the hotel, there were some problems. But again, I was not feeling good, so I didn't really care. I was like, let me just get in the freaking room and rest. After the driving was all right. Let me just get in the room, rest, you know. So I get in the room, I turn on the heater because it's cold out, and it's cold in the room because it's cold outside. And I turn on the heater to like 85. It's just like on a fan, so it won't heat. And then I noticed there's a little space heater in the corner, so I turned that on after a while. And so I was feeling a little chilly last night. I'm not sure, like not all last night, but it got pretty toasty because I kept it on for like quite a few hours. And then the room did get pretty toasty after that. And so, 2 a.m. comes around. I still have the heater on. I went to sleep with it on because I was like, I don't really care. Like, it's a light kind of like fanning heater. It doesn't have those like hot, like red coils in there. So I'm just like, whatever. Let me just turn it on, leave it on because it's freaking cold, really windy. And mind you, when I first checked in, when I first got into the room, I noticed like the latch on the top is a little jiggly, wiggly, but it's solid in there. You can't like rip it. Like I'm pretty sure you could kick this door off the hinges. Like I'm pretty sure it's But I was like, well, it's gonna be windy. But the handle part with the bolt lock wasn't really working. And I was like, what the heck? Because, every now and then, if you stay in hotels a lot, and especially cheap or old ones, you notice that every so often there's a problem with the door or something. And every so often there's a problem with the heater or the hot water or the water pressure or some weird thing with the TV turning on by itself or some weird thing with like the toilet runs or the fridge kind of is loud. And every now and then you just like unplug something and just let it go. You're like, I'm not going to keep switching rooms. And I purposely get the downstairs rooms because I like the downstairs ones because I don't want to be hauling all my stuff up these stairs, especially if I'm taking my snowboard up. And so I'm like, dude, like that's the last thing I want to do. I know myself, it's the last thing I want to deal with. So I usually like to be able to park right by the door and just have the car right there, especially when it's a rental. And basically, I noticed that the top latch is a little weird, but the door, the handle wouldn't actually click in. You know how there's those metal pieces that like when you turn the knob, I don't know what they're called, but there's those pieces that go in and out of the actual door itself as you turn the knob or the bolt, the deadbolt. So I was like, well, maybe I can just latch it, Gee, sorry, my friend just called. So yeah, I was like, maybe I can just latch it, but because it was windy, at least I got proven that that was a terrible idea, because the door started slowly just kind of creaking a little bit open, because like I mentioned, like when the top latch, when you kind of like clasped it onto the door, like it was a little on the looser side, so it wasn't like really like solid on there. And so, the wind was kind of blowing it a little bit more open, like probably like an inch or so open. And I was like, well, it's freezing outside. I wouldn't sleep like this. And like, there's people. And I thought about just putting a bag in front of the door because I have like my gear and stuff. But I was like, no, that sounds stupid. So I'm like, that's just unsafe. And I might not sleep very good, right? And so, I go to sleep with all that kind of situation. I end up like, what I ended up doing to actually get the door shut was, there's this metal piece that's attached to like the wall part of where the door shuts close to the doorknob. So the wall part, I don't know the proper names, but the wall part on the frame had this metal kind of covering on top of some wood. And I noticed that the top screw seemed kind of in, but the bottom screw, how people keep screwing like a screw into wood and then it's just like the wood gets worn, so the screw wasn't like catching and there weren't many angles you could really put the screw back in at. And so I basically took the whole metal piece off because I realized something about it was making it so the door wasn't really closing for the doorknob handle and the deadbolt. And so I have some tools because I always keep like tools in my snowboard bag in case I need to like adjust my bindings or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I got a screwdriver in the car, so I get the screwdriver out like a lesbian does, and I went and I unscrewed the freaking metal piece of the door, and it shut fine enough that I could get the deadbolt locked. Now the door knob on the outside, when you turn it, the little metal pieces don't like come in and out of the door, but when you turn the knob on the inside, it does. And so to get out and fully shut the door, I'd have to like put the doorknob down on the inside and then hold it from the outside and then close it. I can't just go on the outside and just like shut the door. So I already knew there was something weird with the door, right? And then I'm sleeping all night with this heater on. But Sunday was a long day for me. And so I knocked out, and I wake up, I wake up and look at my clock. It is like maybe 2:04 a.m. and I'm like, that's weird that I would wake up this early. And it felt like I barely slept. I literally only slept like 3 hours or so. And it felt like that. Like I was like exhausted, still tired from the day before, and the headache and all that was draining, and like so, I hear like a little bit of knocking, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's why I woke up, because it sounded like the people in the wall next door to me were maybe lightly knocking on the wall. And I was like, I let it go because I'm like half asleep, and I'm like, I hear it again, and I leave it alone. Um, I kind of leave it alone, and you know, um, I just figure, I'm just thinking in my head, like, okay, like, I'm not making noise, like, but maybe that's what woke me up. And I'm like, well, maybe there's somebody outside knocking. Like, I'm just waking up to this. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And it wasn't like banging knocking. It was just like as if you would expect someone to answer the door. You're just kind of knocking on the door, or knocking on the wall or whatever. I would think if I was being loud, or if the heater was too loud, or if I was, I don't know, talking in my sleep or something, that they'd be like banging on the wall, like, or something, like, to get my attention. But it was like slight knocking every now and then for like, I don't know, let's say 30 seconds. I don't know how long. So I turn off my heater. No. So what happens next is I hear the knocking outside my door. Like, now there's clearly somebody knocking on my door, right? And so I'm like, okay, like it's freaking 2 in the morning, So I go in my phone and I check, I check the actual landline phone in the hotel room. It doesn't look like there's any missed messages. It doesn't look like anybody's been trying to call me. I leave it alone. I look on my phone. The reason why is because I've stayed at this hotel so many times that I know that when they need something from me, they usually call my cell phone. Like, I've been outside, just like blazing up, and I had my trunk open because I was like far away by the fence, but I could still see the trunk of my car, and because that's where I kept the weed at. And so I basically, had the trunk open so I didn't have to come back and like open it and all this kind of stuff. So I was just gonna smoke real quick and then put the stuff back in the car, go back in the room. And they called me from the front desk on my cell phone, like, hey, like, your trunk of your car is open. Like, they have cameras around and everything. So I'm like, I'm like, cool. Like, or I've had them call me when I'm like later for check-in, and it's like closer to 7 or 8 p.m. and they're like, hey, are you still coming, kind of thing. So I've had them call me like before. They've called me like on my phone maybe 3 or 4 times total. And I've been staying here for like a couple of years every so often now. And so I know, like, when they have needed something in the past, they've called me. So I was like, well, look at my phone. Maybe it's the front desk that needs something. And I look, I don't have any missed calls. And so I'm like, that's weird. So that means it's probably not the desk, and I'm like laying in bed, and I still every so often hear this knocking at the door. And I'm just like, I just yell real loud, like kind of like annoyed, just like, yeah, like what, kind of like, yeah, and like the knocking kind of stops. Like they weren't continually knocking, they would stop, take breaks, and then knock again. And so I'm like, what the F, like what is going on? So I turned the heater off because I'm like, well, maybe the heater is louder than I think it is because, hotel walls are super thin. So I'm like, well, I'll just turn off the heater and see maybe if they're annoyed with the heater because I'm like, I can't think of anything specific. And the actual heater in the room, not the space heater I was using, but the actual heater in the room, the ones that they have actually in there, the one that was running kind of cooler and wasn't getting hot, that one is way louder than, the one I was using. So I was like, there's no way that it's about the heater, but I'm like, maybe because I had it close to the wall. I don't really know. Like, it's 2 in the morning. How the hell am I supposed to know, like, why somebody's knocking if it's not the front desk? And so, they didn't answer when I said yeah, and so I'm like, okay, put on a sweater. And of course, I'm not going to open the damn door. I look out the peephole, and there's this dude just like standing there, Caucasian guy wearing kind of like one of those waterproof looking members only type jackets, has a white shirt on under. He doesn't look like he's acting erratically or anything, but I'm just thinking like, oh, maybe this guy, and I've been here for like, I don't know how many years I've come to this hotel, at least like 3 years or so. I don't know, like, and I know all the staff. I've seen all the staff. Like, this is not a staff member, and this is not normally what they do. They don't come knocking at your door at 2 o'clock in the freaking morning. And so, I see the guy at the peephole. I'm about to get my camera ready to see if it can look out the peephole and just start recording, but I'm just like, I kind of say like kind of annoyed, just like, yeah, who is it? Like kind of just like right by the door. I didn't open it at all, nothing. But I guess I sounded like a guy enough that he was like, oh, like I could hear like a nervousness in the voice, and he's just like, oh, this is. I think he said his name was Daniel. If it's not Daniel, it was Christian, but I'm pretty sure he said his name was Daniel. And I wrote down both names just in case to let the front desk know. But yeah, I was like, I didn't say anything. He's like, so he basically says, this is Daniel. I'm looking for and he's like, my bad, sorry, dude, and he just like left, you know, and I'm like, that's weird. Like, I didn't see a car parked outside the room. That wasn't my car or the neighbor's car. It wasn't the neighbor because I saw the neighbor. The neighbor is an old man. And that guy next door had his kind of window blinds open. So I know there's only just him in that room because when I was in the car earlier, I was like taking stuff in and out of the car and I saw him because his window was right next to where I was parking. So I could see through his window because he left the blinds open, and I'm like, there's only one old man in there, and I saw him walk in, so I know it's not him. And then, when the random person was, this Daniel person was knocking on the door, I found it odd that like he had previously been knocking not on this door, on my door. Like he was going kind of back and forth. It sounded like knocking on my door and then not on the window, but maybe like the wall next to the window outside, because it sounded like that's probably what I heard at first, because it sounded like the the neighbor was knocking through the wall, but I think he was knocking close to where the walls touch outside. And it was just weird. I'm like, what the F is, what? And like, to me, it was just like, my brain starts like spiraling, and I'm like, I didn't feel like unsafe, but I was just like, just the coincidence that, the latch wasn't working, or like the latch was the only thing that was working and the door knob wasn't working. Like, I don't think he was testing the doorknob or anything like that. But I was a little weirded out by it because I've never had anybody other than housekeeping really knock on the doors over here. So I was really annoyed by it all. I woke up, I basically slept 3 hours and stayed awake till I don't know what time, and didn't really sleep good again. And just the combo of that, and just the weather being so crazy, and I'm just like, dude, I don't even know. So yeah, I wasn't like super pleased, but it was just weird. But yeah, I was online on Expedia looking at some reviews, and I went all the way back to like during like some of the pandemic rules times during 2022, and it turns out, at this hotel, one other person said that somebody was trying to like get into the windows in the middle of the night or something, which is odd. And then another person had mentioned that, something about like people seeking, like drug seeking people around or something like that. And that was kind of what had come to my mind, that like maybe this person thinks that somebody else is in this room. Because it was still a weird, like, I feel like if you're really looking for somebody, like, I let the guy knock for probably like a good 5 minutes or so. He was outside and it was cold, it was raining. um and so I'm thinking, like, if he was knocking on the neighbor's door and then my door, it's like, I don't know what he was expecting, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not the person. And then he never actually said what he wanted. And so I was kind of like, that's a little suspicious to me, because he's like, okay, giving his name, but he wasn't saying like, I'm looking for Chris, or I'm looking for Gene, or I'm looking for, or like, I'm looking for jumper cables, or like something that made any sense. And there's a 24-hour front desk. And so I'm like, well, if you really are looking for somebody and nobody's waking up, you could probably talk to the front desk if you needed like jumper cables or something important. You wouldn't come knocking on doors at 2 in the morning, right? And so I was just like, that's BS, like, what is going on? Like, you know, um, but yeah, that's how I lost sleep again, because I was like, well, after that, I can't just comfortably go back to bed. So I waited till it was like earlier in the morning to actually sleep a little more, and started kind of getting up around 9:30 a.m. ish, because I was like, I'm way past breakfast time now, and had to go get food. Um, but yeah, I just wasn't feeling it today either, unfortunately, and I've had like 2 days of kind of poor sleep now. Yesterday was the headache. Today I woke up super sore. Like, my neck's been sore all day. The backs of my shoulder blades are really in pain. Um, I think after I have dinner, I'm probably gonna have dinner late, like around 7:30. I'm probably gonna practice on my balance board, and then do some yoga and stuff. I don't really know what I'm gonna do, but I don't want to go like too long with no exercise or stretches, and I definitely need it. My body's pretty tight, and like, I'm tense. I don't know if I'm stressed, if that's what the headaches are from. Like I mentioned yesterday, the headache that I had that was early Sunday morning, I feel like it might have been related to the food, because I was feeling a little strange the night before when I was eating dinner, which isn't normal for me. Um, and the aspirin stuff did work, so, and I haven't had a headache today. Um, and I hardly take aspirin, but like I was saying, like, I don't want to disrupt my sleep by having headaches and stuff. And this is like the second time I had that, and then that person who woke me up at like 2 a.m. that was real weird. So I don't really know what that was all about, because usually I think if somebody's knocking on your door and they need something, they're gonna say who it is, or they'll be calling the name of the person. They'll be like, Billy, are you in there? Billy, like something that's like, okay, you're clearly here for a person, versus like somebody who doesn't even like give you the answer, of why they're there. So I was just kind of like, like, I literally was just gonna let him knock till he left, but ended up not being able to let him knock till he left because he just kept knocking and wouldn't go away. Um, but I wasn't gonna open the door, and I made sure, I looked through the peephole. I kept the lights off. Um, I I usually keep like a little balled up napkin in the peephole. I don't think it's a two-way thing where people can see through it, but um, you know, I I'm glad that they have it there so you can like tell who the heck is at your door. Um, but part of me was like, if they didn't go away, I was basically gonna record on my phone and call the front desk and maybe even call the police. But I was like, they weren't banging on the door. They weren't like, yeah, it was a weird hour, but I was like, it was just a little odd. And maybe they were seeking some kind of drugs. I really don't know, but they hadn't tampered with my car to my knowledge. Everything looked like it was in order. It was just weird because 2 a.m. it's like, dude, you're sleeping at 2 a.m. Everybody's sleeping. And I'm pretty sure whoever else was around would have heard somebody else knocking for that long. So it was just really weird to me. Because they wouldn't go away, like, they didn't just like naturally leave. So I was like, well, I'm not gonna like just not answer the door completely, especially because I can call the police or the front desk or whatever. And the door was bolted, it was locked. Um, Thankfully, I made the best decision there and fixed the door myself. I'm gonna put it back to its broken state, and I took video footage and stuff too of the stuff like the heater and all that. Like, I always take video footage in hotel rooms before I leave, in case something's really wrecked, so that if it comes up where they're trying to withhold a deposit, they really can't blame me. And I've never had any problems with this place. The reason why I like staying at this place is because they kind of know me. Like I said, like, they kind of look out, like they kind of know, oh, you're renting cars, or like they kind of know like a little bit about, that I travel. It takes me about 2 hours to get here, so usually like, they'll wait a while about the check-in and stuff, and like they know me. Like, I've been here quite a few times. This is like my third or fourth time coming up here since last March, and so I don't really know. Like, like, it was just weird. Like, weird stuff happens all the time, but to me that was real weird. I don't have things happen in my day-to-day hardly at all anymore, and so that was just one of those flavorful things that was weird that happened. But if it happens again this time, I'm just gonna call the front desk while the person is knocking and have them come check on it, because I'm like, I'm not gonna go outside, I'm not gonna open my door, I'm not expecting anybody. And if the front desk needs me, they usually call me, or there's the phone in the room they can call, or I would have recognized who it was because I've seen all the staff that work here, like I know them all. So like, nothing really happened, but it is kind of weird to me. And I'm kind of wondering what the heck that was all about. It didn't seem like a legit kind of thing. Like, it's not normal for people to be coming around at 2 a.m. I didn't see a car. I didn't see like that someone had driven up and like parked with their lights on or something. I didn't see a car. I didn't hear this person say that they needed anything specific. Um, Maybe with the tone I used, I kind of maybe made them want to leave. I don't know if they really wanted anything, or if they thought, like, maybe if it was drug related, maybe this is the room where you come to get the drugs. I don't know. um, I usually stay in the room next to this one or the one next to that. I don't think I've ever stayed in this specific room. And so, and to have the door not really even working, properly enough to shut was weird. Because even when I first came in, usually you have to use your key to like, swipe or like slide the key card like in the door slot or whatever. And like, yeah, like when I was doing the key thing, the door just like, I noticed it was a little bit ajar, so I just pushed it open, and I looked around. Nobody was in here, so I mean, there's nowhere to hide under the bed. It's like the beds are like they've got two little twin beds, and as like box springs, and then they put a full mattress on top. Um, and so like there's nobody in the room. Um, and so it was just weird. Like I'm just kind of like, what the heck is that all about? But um, and I don't know. Like maybe people purposely, maybe there's something stored in the room. You know, maybe some drugs are stored in the room somewhere or something ridiculous. Um, but you know, um, it's just crazy. Like I'm just like, what the heck? Like this isn't like a pedestrian type area. Like we're in the mountains in the middle of nowhere almost, but there's highways right there, like truck stops nearby and stuff. And so, I was just thinking like maybe yeah, it could be anything. It could be anything. Maybe somebody had good intentions, maybe they didn't, but I mean, other than them bothering me, waking me up, um, they didn't really do anything more. Like nothing more happened. It was just a little suspicious considering that when I first got into the room, I noticed that the door was a little messed up, um, which I feel like I would have thought that like housekeeping or somebody would have like caught that, um, because it's like they've got to know that the door is screwed up. I mean, you know, so I don't know how they're dealing with it, but um, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna make sure I close it, and I'm gonna take the thing on the door to the front desk because it's definitely screwed up. But I don't want them working on it tonight or anything. I just want to be left alone. Um, and I'm leaving that as it is. Um, but yeah, well, that's my story for the day. I don't have much more to really say. Um, I wish I had loads of interesting topics at the moment, but I kind of don't. I think I have a relationship series topic. Um, I'll see. But yeah, I'm about to get right on back into just getting some stuff done before dinner, and then have some dinner and relax and take off tomorrow. I've been watching this series on Netflix called Stiesel. Stiesel. I watched Unorthodox. It has that main character lady as playing one of the daughters, and it's set in Israel. I kind of like movies about Judaism and just religions in general, like very traditional people living out their religious lives. There's something about it that's like appealing to watch. Just like it's like a whole cultural world that you don't really get a glimpse into, and so I really kind of like it. I like the series because it's not like necessarily putting down the religion or showing like all the negative aspects. I like that it's got this like family vibe to it. It's like a cultural family kind of like multi-generational kind of like interaction with like these religious members, the males, the females, kind of all the rules with, marriages and, interactions and study and school and work and just kind of like lifestyle, what do you call it? Life stages, like the different life stages and their kind of like expectations and just how a lot of us kind of maybe aren't on track with our peers in some areas, or maybe we are. Um, but I just kind of like dynamics like that in shows, and I'm so happy that it's 3 seasons. Like I'm almost finishing the first season, and I was like, dang, like I want to savor the last episode and not watch it. And I was like, let me see how long. So I'm about to watch episode 12. I've been watching this over multiple days, but I'm about to watch episode 12, and then I realized, I was like, oh shoot, yes, there's 2 more seasons. And so I'm gonna watch those too. But yeah, that's kind of all I'm up to right now. I'm gonna be studying tonight, and then tomorrow, once I get back to town, I'll study more. I'll see if I record or study on the road. Um, there's a lot of like audio material for me to listen to, but just to familiarize myself. But yeah, I'm um I don't know. Um just trying to get things back to a normal sense for myself, cuz you know, things definitely were off track for a while, and it's going to be up to me to kind of get it back on track. So I'm slowly getting there, slowly getting there. But I hope you guys enjoy day 1 of spring, day 6 of this book, and all right, until next time.